The guest list alone was already building tension. It's rare to have 5 U.S. presidents, a vice president, a former vice president, and recent rivals in the race for the White House sitting next to each other. The number of ties between the first two rows at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. surpassed any comparative scale. It should come as no surprise, then, that President Carter's funeral was the subject of media attention, by no means just because of the sheer respect for the late 39th President of the United States.
My grandfather spent the entire time I've known him helping those in need. He built houses for people that needed homes. He eliminated diseases in forgotten places. He waged peace anywhere in the world. Wherever he saw a chance, he loved people.
It sparked even before the official part of the ceremony, shortly after Vice President Kamala Harris appeared at the cathedral. The current president and the First Lady did not greet Vice President Harris and her spouse, Mr. Emhoff. It was apparent that the ladies who sat next to each other, namely President Biden's wife and the Vice President, tried not to even look in each other's direction. Diplomatically speaking, the prevailing belief in Joe Biden's entourage is that Kamala Harris has chased the president out of the campaign. The current First Lady convinces everyone around her that her husband had a chance to win against Donald Trump, but it was Harris who spoiled everything. Speaking of Donald Trump, one must move to the second row, and here, unusual things happened. The president-elect's neighbor was former President Barack Obama, and to everyone's surprise, the men had a long and pleasant chat before the ceremony. Interestingly, a forensic lip-reading expert from England realized that they were talking to each other about some very serious topics and agreed that they needed to meet somewhere on the sidelines later that same day to discuss these very important pressing matters and make arrangements. The mere fact of discussing important issues and decisions to be made by President Trump with Barack Obama rather than Joe Biden, according to commentators, proves yet another important fact about who has actually been pulling the strings in the White House for the past 4 years. Because in the Biden administration, there were very many people associated with Barack Obama's team. Indeed, one can perhaps dare to say that the real president for the last 4 years was Obama, and that this was his de facto third term. What did the presidents talk about? That's what all U.S. journalists covering politics are trying to find out. Both Trump and Obama have spared no malice for each other in recent years, although as you can see, it is unclear how much of this was a game for the sake of election campaigns and how much was actual dislike.
Take over, Elijah, take over.
Elon Musk has set off a political grenade. London-based analysts say, after the billionaire and inventor accused Great Britain's rulers, including the country's prime minister, of covering up crimes committed by immigrants. At issue is the case of the so-called gang rapists, immigrants from Pakistan who abused and raped children and teenagers for years. Left liberal politicians did not want the cases to come to light, according to Musk, and they were also supposed to protect the perpetrators. Pakistani gangs turned her life into hell. This now grown-up woman decided to break her silence and tell her horrifying story.
I was 14, 15 when it started happening. I'd started college and I'd met some other people and they started bringing me around people's houses and then I was getting picked up randomly when I was drunk, or I was getting ploughed with alcohol by strangers. And then the abuse started getting worse, and I was then taken by a taxi driver and locked in a property for 4 days. So it started with just going around drinking with strange guys, and then led into full-blown abuse.
There are more than 15,000 such cases across the United Kingdom. More than 15,000 children and teenage girls were raped by Islamic immigrants from Pakistan, who have been terrorizing British cities and attacking the defenseless for years.
People keep making more inquiries and don't make the changes recommended to them. How is anything going to change for us victims? I feel like it's more for a political stunt, and it looks like they're doing something by making an inquiry, but they're not actually doing anything if they're not willing to implement them changes.
Change and immediate action from Great Britain's ruling left Liberal Labour Party is being demanded by billionaire and inventor, soon-to-be important contributor to Donald Trump's administration, Elon Musk. He accuses British Prime Minister Keir Starmer of covering up migrant crimes when he was head of British prosecutors.
This is simply stating a fact. There were migrant rape gangs in England that would run around and prey on young girls, gang rape them. And some people found that objectionable, which obviously it should be objectionable. And they were upset about that. And so they complained about it online and were sent to prison. That sounds crazy.
The British Prime Minister speaks of right-wing propaganda and denies everything. But the discussion of the issue in the British Parliament has caused a storm.
We spend a lot of time on social media over Christmas. Not once in 8 years did she stand here and say what she's just said. Not once in 8 years. They didn't act on the recommendations. They want a national inquiry. We had a national inquiry, the J inquiry, the J report. 20 recommendations, not a single one implemented. Not a single one implemented.
It is about the victims. Be a leader, not a lawyer. We know that people were scared to tell the truth because they thought they would be called racist. If we want to stop this from ever happening again, we cannot be afraid.
It was during Starmer's time as Britain's chief prosecutor that the most major negligence, or rather, as Musk claims, deliberate cover-up of crimes was supposed to have occurred.
Musk on that. What he has done, which is very helpful, is focus attention on the fact that ICSA reported in 2022. We're now 2 years, 2 months on, and absolutely nothing has been done, despite all the time and money that was spent on that inquiry. And hopefully that's the impact of Musk, is that he's focused attention on the fact that for 2 years, really nothing has happened since ICSA reported.
The issue of gang rapists has been dragging on since the 1980s, when migrants from the Middle East, mainly Pakistan, began arriving in Great Britain in large numbers. They did not want to assimilate, but to make their own rules. Their victims were mostly children and teenagers. The current government is, by design, less ready to pursue a tough, decisive policy toward immigrants because it is a liberal left government, and these types of governments are always rather open to illegal immigration, considering it a blessing. The scandal over the cover-up of crimes committed by Pakistani immigrants, recalled by Elon Musk, has sparked a heated discussion in the UK about how authorities treat their own citizens versus illegal immigrants. It's like Elon Musk has thrown a grenade for the British politicians, as the issue, before he started raising the topic again, has died down in the UK. Now, thanks to Elon Musk, it's basically the #1 topic in the UK. It's been in the headlines for many weeks now. The topic is being raised the whole time. Muslims in the UK are growing in number, already demanding the introduction of Sharia law in the islands. No wonder, since the Pakistani gang leader responsible for many rapes and assaults, despite his sentence, has not been deported and continues to live where he committed his crimes, in the British town of Rochdale. Polish President Andrzej Duda has asked the government to ensure the possibility of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's participation in the commemoration of the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, if he expresses such a wish. On December 20th, Deputy Foreign Minister Władysław Teofil Bartoszewski said in an interview with the Rzeczpospolita Daily that Poland will abide by the arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu, issued by the International Criminal Court in The Hague. The text reads, "We are obliged to respect the provisions of the International Criminal Court in The Hague." Deputy Foreign Minister Władysław Bartoszewski, who was in charge of coordinating the January 27th ceremony, attended by dozens of world leaders, tells Rzeczpospolita. The issue has spread around the world at lightning speed. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will not attend the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz concentration camp in Poland over fears that he will be arrested and handed over to the International Criminal Court, Polish media reported. Netanyahu will be arrested if he comes to the Auschwitz commemoration, the Polish government confirms. The only representative at the commemoration of the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz on January 27th will be the Education Minister Yoav Kish. After a few days, Władysław Teofil Bartoszewski straightened up. I never said that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu would be arrested if he came to the commemoration of the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. Poland is a signatory to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, and as such is obliged to comply with the orders issued by the ICC. Communication chaos or thoughtful strategy? Within a single statement, government representatives publish a contradictory message. How can one obey the orders of the International Criminal Court, which demands the arrest of Israel's prime minister, and at the same time not want to arrest him? There is no ICC ruling. There is only an arrest warrant, which is really a decision of the prosecutor's office, not the court. The hot news that the Polish government wants to handcuff Prime Minister Netanyahu came after the election victory of Donald Trump, who in the campaign repeatedly declared support for Israel in its struggle against Iranian-funded terrorism. It is certain that the ruling U.S. Republicans will give Israel all the help they can. So negative signals from Poland, especially sent during the celebration of the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, could harm Poland's national interests. The 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz German concentration camp. It is already known that a number of delegations are confirming their presence. This is, in fact, probably one of the last commemorations. The world's mainstream media have been quoting Polish President Andrzej Duda's appeal since yesterday, and perhaps that will be the end of the government's games in this very dangerous situation for the Polish national interest. Unfortunately, for a year now, Donald Tusk's government has been systematically lowering Poland's international standing. We see this in the context, for example, of the Polish presidency of the Council of the European Union and the cancellation of the organization of the European Council Summit in Poland. This is such a shocking issue and so incomprehensible, I think, to the public. I don't know of any example of a country which holds the presidency voluntarily resigning from inviting all the leaders of the countries of the European Union and to host in their country. Yesterday afternoon, the government declared that Israeli leaders can come to Poland without fear. The government of the Republic of Poland declares that it will provide free and safe access and participation in these celebrations to the highest representatives of the State of Israel. The president's intervention saved Poland from a diplomatic scandal and a loss of international prestige. France and Hungary have already announced that they will respect Benjamin Netanyahu's diplomatic immunity. Snow in the Polish Tatra Mountains. During winter in this region, it is the norm and of course a benefit, especially for lovers of skiing or snowboarding. The weather is great. It's finally snowing. Not surprisingly, last year is expected to be a record year in terms of the number of tourists who visited our beautiful mountains. Very nice weather. I didn't even expect it. When we came here, there was no snow at all, but now we are very happy. However, it is much different when winter shows its strength suddenly in other regions of the country. As a result of heavy snowfall in Szczecin, equipment for winter maintenance of national roads went out more than 200 times and used 750 tons of salt. Due to snowfall on the border with the Czech Republic, the Harachów-Jakuszyce border crossing was closed to trucks. On the Polish side, a part of the National Road number 3 was excluded from traffic. The weather in Poland is shaped by a low, and consequently the weather is dynamic, and this will be the case throughout the weekend. So unfortunately, a lot of warnings are already in place and more will follow. Up to 30 centimeters of snow may fall in the Pomeranian and Kuyavian-Pomeranian voivodeship from today until Sunday. In addition, there will be snow blizzards and heavy wind on the coast, which has already managed to do a lot of damage. Firefighters recorded more than 650 reports related to meteorological conditions, mainly strong winds, toppled trees, and broken branches. We can check the map and warnings for each region of the country on the IMGW website and on the X platform. To many places, winter has not yet arrived. I prefer when it snows. Why? Because it's pleasant, nicer, and more beautiful. It's terrible. How come? This moisture and temperature, it's just overwhelming. Quite overwhelming also on the roads. There are icy conditions all over the country. When leaving for work in the morning, now that's what you have to take into account, that the braking distance is significantly increased. Therefore, one should consider longer distances between vehicles. One thing is certain, in the near future, we should prepare for a number of weather challenges in Poland.